Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we really plunge into fascinating topics, pull out the key insights, and hopefully leave you feeling, really well informed. Today, we're actually setting off on a bit of a botanical adventure. It's about a plant that might just make you rethink your own garden space, or maybe even your window box. And this deep dive, like always, is definitely for you, the curious learner, the person ready to uncover some surprising facts and connect a few dots. Our source material for today is, well, it's a wonderful set of observations from a gardener named Ang. We're looking at excerpts from Exploring the Rangoon Creeper, a gardener's deliberation, specifically a section called Notes on Gardening, Part 620. It was published pretty recently, August 9th, 2025. So our mission, our goal today is to unpack Ang's very personal thinking about one specific vine, the Rangoon Creeper. We wanted to discover its frankly surprising, almost magical features, and also understand why even a really experienced gardener might hesitate, pause before bringing it home, despite how attractive it is. It's like a real peek into that thoughtful process, someone balancing beauty with, well, the practical realities of their space.
And it's such a perfect way to look at it, isn't it? That intersection of botany and just human decision making. Ang's personal notes, they seem like they're just about one plant, but they really open up these profound insights into plant biology, evolutionary strategies, and, our own complex relationship with nature, how we cultivate it, how we manage it, and ultimately whether we decide to make space for it. It really highlights that gardening is often less about just, sticking things in the ground and more about thinking things through, deliberating.
Well, okay, definitely. Let's unpack this then and dive into the, well, captivating world of the Rangoon Creeper. So Ang kicks off these notes with a feeling that I think a lot of us can relate to straight away. They admit, and I'm quoting here, "I'm not particularly interested in vine-based plant species, mainly because of limited gardening space." And that sets up a really common dilemma immediately, doesn't it? You see these amazing climbers, draping over walls or fences, and your first thought is often, wow, gorgeous, but where? It's that very real conflict, aspiration versus, well, actual square footage. But despite this sort of initial reluctance, Ang introduces the star of our show today, the Rangoon Creeper. It also goes by its botanical name, Combretum Indicum, and the rather lovely common name, Chinese Honeysuckle.
Right. And that feeling about limited space, it's pretty much universal for gardeners, especially if you're in a city apartment or, a suburban house where every inch counts. Vines, well, their whole nature is to be aggressive growers. They're literally designed to climb, to spread out, reach for the sun, and that often means they need a serious footprint, either going up or spreading out. So if you don't already have things like pergolas or big trellises or lots of wall space, managing that vigorous growth, it can become a real chore fast. So Ang's initial hesitation makes perfect sense. It's entirely practical.
Absolutely. And what I find intriguing is that Ang points out something specific. While they don't often see the Rangoon Creeper, like featured in nurseries or garden centers, they say it's a common sight in the outdoor gardens of my neighborhood. And that sparks my curiosity. If it's not being pushed commercially, how does it get so popular locally? What does that tell us about this plant, its character?
Yeah, that's a really key observation. It points to something you see with certain plants that are, well, hardy and easy to grow. They become what some people call pass-along plants. So instead of being bought, they're just shared. A neighbor offers a cutting, or maybe it even starts itself from seeds dropped by birds. And that speaks volumes about the Rangoon Creeper's resilience, its ability to just thrive without constant fuss. Combretum indicum, that botanical name, places it in the Combretum family, and that family is known for having lots of flowering trees and shrubs, and many of them share that kind of vigorous, adaptable way of growing. Its prevalence in the neighborhood suggests it's probably well suited to the local climate, pretty low maintenance once it gets going, and it propagates easily, so it becomes a sort of beloved, if maybe informal, staple in local gardens.
Huh? So it's almost like this hidden gem, passed neighbor to neighbor, thriving outside the usual commercial system. That makes a lot of sense, actually. It explains its sort of quiet popularity. But even with Ang's initial, lack of interest in vines, something about this plant clearly grabbed their attention. And here's where it gets really interesting. And I think this is why the Rangoon Creeper should grab your attention too. Ang highlights what they call its most fascinating feature. It's about its flowers. They're tubular. Each one has 5 distinct petals. Elegant shape. But it's not just the shape, it's a dynamic living spectacle. Can you tell us a bit more? What did Ang actually observe about these flowers?
Oh, certainly. Eng's notes describe this absolutely captivating transformation. It's quite something. So the flowers, when they first open up, they're this pure, pristine white. But then as they age, maybe over a day or two, they slowly start to shift. They bloom into this delicate pink, and then eventually they deepen even further into this really rich, vibrant red. Just picture it, a single cluster on the vine showing all three colors at the same time. White, pink, red. It's like a living gradient. It's a truly dramatic, beautiful color show constantly unfolding right there.
That's incredible. Wow. A single plant putting on that kind of dynamic performance. But okay, what's the biological reason for such a, I don't know, sophisticated, almost artistic color change? Is it just for us to look at, or is there something more going on?
Well, what's truly fascinating here is the biological purpose behind that amazing color change. It's basically a masterclass in plant communication. Eng's notes explain it perfectly. It's all to attract pollinators like bees and birds. But let's dig a bit deeper into how that actually works. Often, this kind of color change is driven by shifts in the pH levels, the acidity inside the flower cells. And this affects pigments, specifically things called anthocyanins. Anthocyanins are what give many plants their red, purple, and blue colors, and their exact shade can be really sensitive to pH changes. So think of it maybe like this. A fresh white flower, or maybe a pale pink one, is sending out one message. This initial stage is often really visible to, say, night-flying moths or just generalist bees, and it usually signals, hey, fresh nectar supply here. But then as the flower gets older and turns that deeper red, it becomes like a beacon for different kinds of pollinators, maybe long-tongued butterflies or even hummingbirds, which are famously drawn to red. And they often associate that color with a nectar source that's maybe more mature but still worth visiting.
Wow. So it's almost like the plant is, I don't know, directing traffic
Hmm.
or putting out different signals for different audiences depending on when the flower is like optimally ready.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. It's a highly efficient evolutionary strategy.
Mhm.
By changing color, the plant maximizes its chances of attracting the widest possible range of pollinators over the entire lifespan of that one flower. The white might be best for early morning or evening visitors, the pink maybe for midday bees, and the red for pollinators that prefer those stronger colors. And some studies even suggest something else, that the red flowers, which might have already been pollinated, could be signaling to pollinators, okay, I'm done, move along.
Whoa.
It subtly guides them towards the fresher white flowers where their pollination efforts will actually help the plant reproduce. It's this complex, silent conversation happening between the plant and its environment.
That really makes the whole abstract idea of plant evolution so much more concrete, doesn't it? When you see such a clear, beautiful example of adaptation right there. And it's not just a pretty show for us, it's this vital, ongoing dialogue ensuring the plant survives. It makes you wonder, what other silent conversations are happening in our own gardens that we're just completely missing. It's truly amazing. A plant putting on such a display, not just for aesthetics, but for its very existence. But despite this really alluring, almost magical feature, Aang ultimately brings it back down to earth, back to a practical decision. They state, and I'm quoting again, not for now, as I don't plan to get and grow this plant unless I can find a suitable way to arrange it in my garden. So it really circles back to that first point. Limited gardening space.
Hmm. And this really brings up an important question for, well, any gardener, or honestly, anyone making a choice where practicality kind of clashes with desire. The Rangoon Creeper, like a lot of vines, it needs support to climb, or it needs plenty of room to just spread out. In small spaces, managing that really vigorous growth can quickly become, well, overwhelming. For example, if you don't train it properly or give it the right support, a vine like this can easily smother other plants nearby, block sunlight, maybe even damage walls or fences. So a gardener might absolutely love the beauty of those color-changing flowers, but they have to weigh that against the risk of the plant just taking over. Blocking paths, outgrowing its spot. It's all about finding that tricky balance between the aesthetic appeal and the functional realities of the space you actually have.
And Aang's dilemma really underscores a universal truth in gardening, doesn't it? Space is like currency. You only have so much. But is there a way around it? Can you have your beautiful vine in your small garden? Are there like specific strategies or techniques a gardener in Aang's shoes might try, short of, buying a bigger place?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. While Aang is still thinking it over, there are definitely creative ways to handle vigorous vines in smaller spots. For instance, there's a technique called espalier. That's where you train a plant to grow flat against a wall or a trellis, often in a kind of formal pattern. That could be a really beautiful way to showcase the Rangoon creeper without letting it just go wild. Or you could use vertical trellises, but maybe in large containers. That lets the vine climb upwards instead of spreading outwards too much. And of course, strategic pruning is absolutely key. You have different kinds of cuts heading back. Cuts encourage it to get bushier, while thinning cuts remove whole branches right back to the main stem, which helps manage the density. So it's not just about having space, it's about creating and managing that space intelligently. Now, these techniques, they do require more hands-on work, obviously, which is another practical point for any busy gardener to consider.
That's a really key distinction. It's about active management, not just letting it grow passively. And I think it's important, too, that Ang isn't completely shutting the door on it. They leave it open, saying, unless I can find a suitable way to arrange it. That shows a really thoughtful approach, doesn't it? A kind of hopeful outlook that maybe a solution will appear. It's not a hard no. It's more like a not yet, given these constraints.
It definitely resonates. I remember battling a super vigorous climbing rose on my own small patio years ago. And Ang's words really, they hit home.
Exactly. And it encourages you, the listener, to think about your own garden, maybe, or even just the plants on your windowsill. How often do the practical things, the realities, outweigh that initial fascination? Do you really have space for that towering tree you saw or that huge shrub, even if it's just stunningly beautiful? It's this constant negotiation we do, whether we're planting a garden or redecorating a room or, heck, even making a career choice sometimes. Ang's deliberation just perfectly captures that thoughtful process, balancing what you want with what's actually feasible. So after this deep dive into Ang's gardening notes, what does it all mean for us? Well, we've explored the sheer beauty, the biological wonder of the Rangoon Creeper's color-changing flowers, a true masterclass in natural attraction, right? A plant doing this intricate, silent dance just to survive. But we've also seen the very relatable, thoughtful deliberation of a seasoned gardener, balancing that deep desire for beauty against the very real practical limits of space and the commitment needed to manage something like that. It's really a snapshot of a decision so many of us face, not just with plants, but in lots of parts of our lives.
And if we sort of connect this to the bigger picture, Eng's brief notes, and our discussion about them, they really remind us that even just closely watching nature, whether it's the tiny details of one plant's life cycle or the personal thoughts of a gardener, it can reveal these incredibly complex interactions and, frankly, brilliant natural design. It's really about paying attention to those details, trying to understand the why behind the what, and just appreciating the ingenious ways nature solves problems.
Absolutely. The Rangoon Creeper's flowers change color to attract specific pollinators at specific times. It's a silent, dynamic signal, a hidden message, really, for those who know how to read it. So I want to leave you, our listener, with maybe a final provocative thought to chew on. What other hidden messages or evolutionary tricks might you be overlooking in the plants and the nature around you every single day? Things that are just waiting for you to notice. Maybe that really unusual leaf shape, or the exact timing of when a flower blooms, or even a subtle scent you just catch on the breeze. Perhaps it's part of a complex conversation, an intricate piece of a puzzle that maybe now you're a little better equipped to solve. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of the Rangoon Creeper and Ang's thoughtful gardening notes. Keep exploring, keep observing, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.